The World of RPGs, Episode 22, Romania. Welcome to The World of RPGs, a podcast in which we travel around the globe and visit the local role-playing scenes. I'm your host, Mobots, and in Episode 22 we're going to Romania. And in fact, I literally went there in March this year. I'm recording this in July 2025, so I actually met many of my interviewees before the recording. As for news on my side, I've been busy playtesting my own game at the local game club and elsewhere in English and German, and I've already written 2 scenarios for it and they seem to work. I also finished reading another game system, Penumbra City, a World of Harrow game, written by Margaret Killjoy, Inem Neruin and Robin Savage, published in 2024 by Strangers in a Tangled Wilderness. It's a kind of post-apocalyptic anarchist game where you play a member of a character class from different political factions, but I don't think I will run it anytime soon. I'm not saying it's a bad game, it's mostly because the rules and setting don't really speak to me that much. Maybe I'm not anarchist or punk enough. Also, other games I'm currently reading take up more attention and interest, but more on that once I finish reading those. And finally, I'm now officially the tutor of the University Gaming Club and I have to sign a lot of forms whenever they host a gaming event. But it's fun seeing a new generation try out different video, board and role-playing games. So shout out to TAUOK, that's the abbreviation of the club name. On to this episode. We're back in Europe for one episode before we return to the American continent. And the reason is simply because I visited Bucharest and got in contact with people there. Romania is located between Central Eastern and Southeastern Europe, bordering Ukraine, Moldova, Hungary, Serbia and Bulgaria, with the Black Sea in the east and parts of the Carpathian Mountains right in the middle. Romania is historically made up of 3 regions, Wallachia in the south with the capital Bucharest, Transylvania in the west, and Moldova in the east. And yes, there's another sovereign country with the same name right next to it, where they basically speak the same language, which is mainly because of the Soviet Union. Speaking of languages, Romania is the odd one out in the region because they speak a language from the Romance language group, meaning it's rather related to Italian than to Slavonic languages, though there's some vocabulary from Russian, I think. Also make sure not to mix up Romanians with Romani people. The Romani make up one of the minorities of the country at about 3%. The other major minorities are Hungarians and historically also Germans, both mostly in Transylvania. The overall population is about 19 million and the majority religion is Eastern Orthodoxy, though Hungarians and Germans tend to be Roman Catholic or Protestant. And Romania was part of the Soviet sphere of influence during the Cold War era, and the architecture of Bucharest is an eclectic mix of communist blocks and early 1900s French-style buildings. And since I live in Istanbul, let's not forget that Romania was a vassal state of the Ottoman Empire, and this part of its history is also connected to the famous Vlad Tepes, the Impaler, on whom the Dracula story is based. But note that the connection between Tepes and vampires is a 19th century invention by an Irish author, though of course you can get lots of cheesy Dracula souvenirs in Romania. In summary, it's an amazing place to visit. As has become our tradition, we start with someone from the actual play video that teased this episode.
Greetings, my name is Bogdan. I am an actor and I also used to run a theater. And at some point I went to Chicago because I mainly focused on improvisation. And I went to Chicago to an improv festival there and I saw an improvised D&D. And it was an awesome show. It was really funny and really entertaining. And, I had some sort of reference from the D&D cartoons back in the 90s. So I came back to Romania. I tried doing a show like that. And one of my students asked me, after all the audience went home, we were in the bar, and one of my students said, "Do you want to play a Vampires the Masquerade game?" And I said, hell yeah. So that led to us at 5 a.m. having had an awesome time. And then I was kind of on and off with it. But I kept coming back to it and assembled at some point a team of improvisers. That same person that introduced me to role-playing games, David, he is our DM and he runs our stream. I mean, I'm running the stream, I'm the producer, but he is the dungeon master and the main storyteller.
You mentioned one of your first sessions was Vampire the Masquerade.
Yep.
Did that take place in Romania or in some other setting?
Yeah, it was actually in Romania. My dungeon master actually has the whole Bucharest mapped out, and I believe he did the entire map of Romania with the different clans and their influence in different parts of the country and of the cities and so on. It was actually really well thought out. It was actually kind of scary.
And so, how's the reaction to the Romania related stuff in the vampire books, like Transylvania Chronicles and so on?
Actually, that didn't come up that much. Actually, it didn't come up at all. Like Dracula in Vampire the Masquerade. Nope, it didn't.
I've been to Romania twice, and the first time I went there, we went to this Dracula's castle in Transylvania, and I thought this just looks like in Germany because there's this German minority in that region. So the houses look like in the southern part of Germany, which is like the most cozy and well-off part of Germany. So I thought that's not scary. It just looks like a German village here.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was the opposite of scary there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something you have to consider, that Transylvania is actually not that scary as a region.
It's quite lovely.
Can you tell us a bit about that stream? What's the name of it and what kind of shows do you have?
It's a play upon words. It means Dungeons and Dragons in a kind of funny way, but it's in Romanian, Pivnițe și Balauri. It's actually, you can translate that like cellars and dragons, something like that. And we wanted to give it a Romanian twist. So we took D&D 5e, the core rules, but we added an overlay of Romanian mythology and Romanian stories and creatures and heroes from the Romanian mythos. And we play in that sort of a Romanian fantasy world.
Can you maybe give some example of what a typical Romanian monster or hero would be like compared to the classic D&D setting?
Sure. So our main villain was Muma Pădurii. It's like a shadowy term for mother, the mother of the forest. And she was a beautiful woman that was protective of the woods, and the gods made her like an official protector. But at some point, she started getting more and more revengeful, and she is now like a dryad monster. And she doesn't allow anyone to even step into the forest. She should have protected the forest from being cut down and so on, but now she's so possessive that she doesn't allow anyone. So she kind of put everyone to sleep, and our party needed to fight her in some way or another.
If I understand it right, you're using D&D 5th edition, which you would have in English. Is there any material available in Romanian, or do you use everything from English?
We use everything from English. There is nothing translated in Romanian. There have been a few private parties that tried doing this. Most of the community says it would sound very cringe. And quite frankly, it does sound very cringe when you translate it in Romanian. But here's the interesting part. The Romanian people that play D&D and the Romanian people that have the inclination to play role-playing games, 90% of them probably know English, speak English as a second language, at least. I grew up in the 90s and I had Cartoon Network. So before I actually learned to speak English from TV. Before I went to kindergarten to take English classes, I could speak almost as good as now English. And that was all cartoons. It happened to my entire generation, by the way, in Romania.
I always use a short part of an actual play recording as a teaser for the next episode. And I used episode 42 of your channel for the Romania episode. I don't know if you remember that episode. I will just post the name of it in the chat. I used a section where one of the female players kind of sounded like a witch. I don't know if you remember that episode, but if you can maybe have a quick look at it, it would be around minute 40. I was just wondering what's happening in that scene. It sounded funny, so I used that part.
Oh, this brings back memories. Yes, so I presume you're speaking about the female player from the bottom.
Yes.
Mihaela Georgescu, she's an awesome improviser. They all are. She was playing a character that was named the Eye of Corlys. Corlys was this dragon that, oh my god, there's so much to unpack. So my character didn't know it was the only dragonborn, because in Romanian mythos, we don't have dragonborns. So I was the exception in that world. Had no idea where I came from. We did another entire two-shot with a different party, and at the end it was revealed that that party was carrying my character from this episode 42 that you're seeing when it was a child, when it was a baby dragonborn. It was so emotional, and his mother had to give him away to a mage, and the mage had to make sure that he cast a spell that made the entire world unaware of dragonborns, and that was the entire even her. So there was a lot to unpack there, especially emotionally, because we're kind of comedy focused, but at some points we get to these kind of soap opera moments, and it was quite beautiful. And this character right here, the Eye of Corlys, my character's father is Corlys. She's like a prophet, and because she can see into the future, she is kind of crazy. She's old and crazy. That is the explanation. From time to time, she can see in the future. She had a custom class that our DM made, Prophet. She had a Prophet class. And here, what was going on, we were finally having some off time. We were before probably a big battle / infiltration. After a massive battle and kind of a chapter close, and our characters were actually at the seaside, and we could finally unwind. So my character and the other girl's character were in love for quite some time. And what she is doing, the Mickey from the bottom, she was kind of hinting at the fact that the water was perfect for dipping a toe, at least, into it. That's what was going on there.
So you said she was an improviser, and you talked a bit about improvisational theater. So how do you see the connection there between these actual play recordings and improvisational theater?
We're all improvisers, everyone that's at the table, actors and improvisers. I think it's really cool because I love improv. And D&D just gives me the opportunity to do improv for 4 to 5 hours. That's it. I get to sit at a table and do improv with my friends. I usually have shows with them. Actually, the guy from the bottom right, the girl from up top, and myself, we have a team. And we just last week won the local improv cup. So we perform improv, we train ourselves in improv, and even when we play, we use improv as a tool to express ourselves, to build scenes, to get into comedic bits, and so on. How does it connect? Well, with our training, we can, like, at the snap of a finger, instantaneously be in the scene and commit to the scene. So it's never awkward. Sometimes we get new players to come at our table, and we make sure to pull them into that universe as fast as possible. Many people can feel the awkwardness at the table and they can get in their heads. But if you have 2-3 players that are really committed to a scene, talking about where will my character take a dump, they'll be really, preoccupied by that. You can get everyone to play along, and I find that really cool.
Yeah, congratulations on the prize. And I will, of course, link to the video in the show notes so that if you set the person up there or bottom left, then people can look that up later.
Yeah.
Because this is audio only, but I have show notes with links to everyone's websites, etc. Okay, so it's based on D&D 5e rules. Are you planning or are you working on anything that's not Dungeons and Dragons?
After this campaign that took about a year and a half, we did like the experimental autumn is what we called it. And it was a time where we would explore different systems. Our DM kind of invented a D10 system with a simplified character sheet where you pick up to 12 points in all kinds of skills. And if it's a really narrow skill like finding ants. If you ever find your character needing to find any ants, you will have your skill in finding ants doubled or tripled. If it's just good at driving cars, it will be ×1 only. And you can also pick some flaws, and that's it. Only one D10 die, and that was it. Because we kind of felt that during the streams, the combat, which we enjoyed the most, was the slowest thing in D&D, and that was terrible. That was awful even for viewership. I always try to come up with incredible descriptions of everything that was going on, but at the end of the day in 5e, when you get to count all the damage die, you grow a white beard, especially at level 10 or 11, like level 3 smite against a fiend or an undead. You know what I mean. So yeah, we did a lot of experiments, tried different systems, but realized that we wanted the classic D&D experience again. So we are doing a new campaign in 5e once more. I'll link you a short video that hit really, really many views on TikTok. The Romanian audience really connected with this. It's actually a short video of my character asking an old lady where he can find a bathroom to take a dump. And people really enjoyed this. I believe Viva La Dirt League, do you know that? Viva La Dirt League on YouTube?
And no, I don't really watch YouTube channels that much. I'm more a reading, listening person.
Okay.
I also don't watch Critical Role.
So anyway, they have this short video of character realizing that they're 2 years in a campaign and they never went to the bathroom. So it's this sort of realism that is really cool. I just wanted to add a beautiful moment. I managed to crit a soldier. My character lifted him on his sword and split him in half. And I tried to intimidate the other soldiers, and I had to roll an intimidation check. It was, of course, a natural 1. And my dungeon master just said, "You stand there covered in blood and shit, and the soldiers start laughing at you." So it's the glory of a natural 20 and the realism of a natural 1 that I think makes this role-playing experience so beautiful.
Next, I talked to a shop owner in Bucharest whose contact I got after visiting a store this March.
Hi, my name is Chris. I am the owner of the actual website called hobby-planet.ro. We are also a physical game store, so it's a brick and mortar store. And I am currently the operating manager of the company and of the store. And actually, there is nobody else managing the company besides me.
And how did you get into role-playing games?
Well, I am from the old guard of players, let's say. I've been dabbling in a lot of digital PC games, like, I don't know, everything from Black Isle Studios and everything. So I had very early contact with RPGs. And then, of course, this led to exploring other games and everything. So I tried and I played a few of the systems, and some of them I liked, some of them are okay, some of them I don't like them in particular. I usually like the ones that give a lot of freedom to players as a player, and also a lot of freedom to the dungeon master to do a lot of actual role playing. So engaging the players and engaging the group to do maybe more than just battle.
Can you give some examples of such games?
Well, in every tabletop RPG, it's possible to do that. So let's take, for example, D&D. There are avenues during a campaign where, as a DM, you could let them just do, I don't know, explore, do encounters, battle, XP, then just get the loot, and that's much about it. But in order to keep them entertained, you could give them some other stuff to do, like, for example, give them the opportunity to run a small castle or to run a small tavern, and actually give them daily tasks and then mash some encounters in the bar, and then they would get some of the results from there, just getting a lot of opportunities in that location, which is not scripted. Sometimes it's a very, very instant. Things happen in real time and you just need to react also as a DM and also as the group and also as the players who have this opportunity to play this kind of game. But then there is also the games from Monty Cook. Yeah, many of them are based on narration. So basically it's narrative mostly. But let's take, for example, a narrative game like Vampire the Masquerade. That is also very narrative, but it's also combat oriented. Depends also all the time what the group wants, but also you don't need to fulfill all the fantasies and all the needs of the group. So it doesn't matter what they need to do or they want to do. You just need to steer them in the direction to throw them in the right mix. This is how you get them entertained and you just keep them, on top of things.
And which games are you playing at the moment?
Unfortunately, not many. I'm playing just some board games with my friends from time to time. We are planning to start, I think, end of summer. We have made a board game table with a lot of features like an OLED TV that goes into the table and goes out, and we can put digital maps or actual the digital encounters and everything, so we can work through all the apps and everything that is available on the internet. So we are planning at least for 4 sessions, and this is only what I'm cooking with my friends. Of course there will be a D&D session, then there will be some, I don't know, one shots or just 2 sessions, short ones for Vaesen. Then we are also having a fellow, let's say, resident DM who's going to join us, and he's going to hold and he's going to organize us into playing Vampire the Masquerade. That one I'm just going to be a player, not even organizer. I just want to enjoy the full length of the campaign. We are trying to set up some other 2 or 3 out of the top of my head. That would be Fallout, Dune, and if we get enough players, we could try Cult, which is a more exotic and very, very realistic TTRPG. And also, we could try also Fading Suns, which is a mix of Dune with many other. It's got a lot of influences. It's a whole universe.
Some of these games are set in the real world, like Vaesen or Vampire or Cult. So when you play these, would they be set in where they were written or in Romania?
No, we would try to keep the narrative close to the books or to the source material. So we have never discussed this. So that's a good idea to try to put everything into, Romanian scenery. But it's not something that we would be pursuing actively.
So this gaming table you talked about with the screen, that would be at Hobby Planet, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be, and it is the centerpiece. Right now, we are not using it very often because we have put it up on the spot, but there are some temporary legs for the table, so we need to set up the height of the feet. So there is a debate between me and my friends and the people who are very passionate about this project. And the debate is one on which we would put a table like normal tables as people play on a normal chair, or we would heighten it a little up, like about 15 to 20 centimeters. So if a table is 75 centimeters in height, we would put it at 90 centimeters. But then we would put some bar stools, comfy ones with recliner and everything, so you can sit very comfortably for a period of time, like 4, 6, 7 hours, and then play, because the table having when you go full digital with the OLED and everything, due to the inclination where you would like to see everything, you would be very tempted to push your head in front, on top of the table to see everything. So this is also the discussion we are having right now, and we have not implemented. We have a set for the table for some feet, but they are not the definitive ones. And I am waiting for those to be produced, to be actually manufactured, and for the guys who made the table to actually come and install them. Mind you, it's 100% Romanian product. Of course, I took some inspirations from tables that are out there, from the function and form and whatever. But this is a project of mine, which I've started and I wanted to do it. It went quite expensive, but in the end, I hope it will be worth the energy and also the resources spent from money and also all the trouble we've been through, with moving everything into the small shop area to make place for this table, which is kind of big. It's 1.5 by 2 meters. So the playing area is quite big. And of course, when we're finished, we put the TV underneath the table. So it's in its own box, it descends on an electrical actuator. And then we have some wooden sleeves or leaves, and we put it on the table so we can set it up as a non-digital table for a classic tabletop RPG, with drone maps and everything. So, and also we can use, because I am waiting now for an acrylic screen to protect the OLED surface. So that is also to be arriving in about 2 weeks. Then if we have a session and it does not end, instead of them asking the players and the DM to close everything up and to take the minis from the table and to take the scenery or whatever, we just leave them on the center part of the table where the TV is, and then we push the button, the TV goes down, we put the wooden leaves, and it's like a save session for the next day. So they have everything there. They just need to show up the next day or in 2-3 days. We put up again the TV, the area, and they can resume playing where they were. So they don't need to do anything else, to write down, to take screenshots or photos or whatever. Okay, this was close range, this was long range, medium, I had this, and that. Everything, all the minis can sit on the table.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. And I hope next time I'm in Bucharest, I can try it out. So we've met in person and I've been to your shop and marveled at the RPG and board game selection and the other hobby products. But focusing on RPGs, so which ones are popular in Romania? Which ones do you have to import most? I'm guessing all of them are in English.
Everything is in English. I don't think there would be a market for Romanian language RPGs. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be a market or an interest for people creating an RPG in Romanian by a Romanian team, like, I don't know, an RPG with Vlad Țepeș or with the Romans or, but that's another discussion. What we do import is everything in English. Of course, about popularity, the D&D sells a lot, but I also sell other very known games like Pathfinder, like Vampire the Masquerade, like Witcher also. But what I want to do, because I remember you were in my store and I showed you, I have some more other exotic RPGs like, I don't know, Alien or the ones from Free League Publishing and everything. So what I am going to try to do for the market and in the market is going to be trying to address also the niche. I don't need to sell 20 copies of a core rule book for a game. If I sell a few and I create a small community and those people have fun and come here and use the table, use the facilities, support the store, that's enough. It should be very nice because we are also planning to start generating some online content, even recording our own sessions or recording playthroughs or recording full campaigns or, I don't know, small demos starting from TTRPGs, but not only that. Also board games, also, I don't know, small tournaments of card games. It depends. We're going to just try to get out more in the world, let's say, and just to put these kinds of products so people can see and experience them from a distance.
So when I asked you about you starting, you didn't say when. So in which year did you start playing?
I think 2006, 2008, something like that.
And were there shops back then in Bucharest?
Yes, there was one shop, and I was actually the organized play manager for that shop. So we were doing gaming sessions and some stuff, but it was mostly oriented on the card game scene, so TCG scene, not too much on RPGs. But I did play with a few friends back at then.
You could get games at that shop, or would you have to import them, or how did that work back then?
So the shop owner, he had some connections also in the US and also through his partners, the distributor. He would look there if he can find them and then bring them, import them into Romania. Otherwise, we would bring our own stuff and we would play there. It depended also on what system we had. But mind you that at that time there weren't that many RPGs. I can name you just a few in these many years. I've been experimenting D&D a lot, and then also there was the Star Wars RPG, the one that was made by FFG, Fantasy Flight Games.
Oh, that was the third. Oh, that's rather late. Yeah, I've played that once.
But actually, I think that was in 2010, 11 when I was having already the shop, and I was importing already those and we were playing full sessions. We were blending it with Imperial Assault. So we would take the books and the dice, and then we would take all the miniatures and the maps and everything from the dungeon crawler, from the Imperial Assault, and we would use them in the TTRPG table, just putting them in the game. What I would like to add is two things, but they are more business related than promoting the games and everything. In Romania, we do have a small problem about supporting the local stores. This way, a local store sometimes who offers more amenities than other local game stores. It's one thing to have a location in wherever when you are just a starting store or whatever, and to put some made up tables or play in a bar or whatever and just say you're a shop. But it's another thing when you're trying to be in a very central location like we are situated, and also to offer comfort and everything, like first of all to offer the players natural light, which sometimes defeats the purpose because hey, they are playing at night, but not always. Not always. During the weekends, we would be trying to start some sessions from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m. And on summer, it's full range day. And then to have the late night session starting 8:30 until late in the evening, 23, maybe past midnight. So people are comparing, I don't know, apples to cucumbers or something. When you're running a shop, you need to price your services and your products and to put the margin as much as you can get profit as a business, of course. At the end of the day, I don't want to hide this. We are in for the business and for the business venue that we're trying to do. It shouldn't have any relation with the fact that we are enjoying the games as the owners. We play games, we are the owners, but we need to be business oriented. And us being compared as a physical brick and mortar store to be compared with a online business or an online website, okay, that price is cheaper there. It's something that it's happening a lot in Romania. Maybe it is also because two things. One is the fact that we do not have too much of a hobby culture. That is one. And the second thing, what I believe, and I have been seeing it, people do not support too much their local game stores. I have seen many players, especially on the card games area, card games, let's say, phenomenon, saying, yeah, but I want all the stores to be good and to have money and to make profit. So I'm supporting each of them equally. Well, it would be a good thing, but it's not. Because you need at some point to take a stand. You need to show your allegiance to somebody, to some shop. So this is something that I have been experiencing it. I'm not saying that I like it or I don't. Of course, me bringing up this subject means that I don't like this, but there's nothing I can do. All I can do is to get to know very well my customers, my players, and to keep them invested in the store with a lot of person to person business opportunities. But just today, for example, I got a pre-order for Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game, which is crazy. Everybody's wanting it. There is not enough copies. The guys from Poland, the publishers, they don't have that many copies. They had some problems with producing the game and everything. So everybody would like to play it and to own a copy, and they can't. And of course, I got this email from one of my distributors saying, okay, if you want, just place a pre-order. And I just did something that I usually don't do, because as a token of my appreciation and knowing that they are very into this game and they would like to own it and have it on the shelf and their collection, I have given them exactly my margin. So I said, I'm doing it not for profit. I'm doing it with the smallest margin possible, because I need also to take into account also taxes and everything that I need to pay, shipping fees and whatever. But it was something that usually I don't do. So this is how I reward the players and also my customers, just that they come here and play their hobbies and everything. From time to time, I offer them such a very good deal that they could not even refuse it. For example, when I made the price, I slashed everything I could and I gave them about 20% less for the bundle than an online shop is doing. So I was just doing fulfillment, purely fulfillment for this one. So I'm not into profit for this. I was just calculating it exactly for 10 copies of each. So I could get one to sell in the store as a full profit, just one piece, one full set, and just one set to be covered from all the margins, so I could keep it in the store and offer all the people to come here and play the game. Because I am telling you, it is a nice game. I tried it, I played it like 2-3 sessions, and it's very nice. We do not have a very mature market. It's on this kind for the hobby stores. It's more like really opportunistic. So if there is a 1-2 euro difference in a product, you should expect yourself that they would go to your competition just for that 1-3 euro difference. It is what it is. Maybe it's also because in Romania there is the problem of wages and the parity with euro and everything. So we're not a poor country, but our buying power is not that big. So there's this. There is also maybe the rooted thing that's been happening after the revolution since 1989, 1990s, because we did not have many things. We would like to have things, to own things. And one of them is owning your own place, your own apartment, your own house, your own car, because we were not allowed to have property during the communist regime. For me, for example, maybe if I would have done it another way, I could have bought a commercial place to run the business from, but I'm still renting. So I do not own a place. I don't think I will ever own a place for the shop, but I do own a house. So that's the important thing. For other cultures, for them, it's much more important to own all the assets regarding to the business, but they rent houses and places and cars and whatever, leasing cars and everything. So we are about 180 degrees reversed from some other mindsets, let's say. So this is a lot to work on. And finding the right combo, the right amount of a customer that understands what I'm trying to build. Of course, some of them stay, some of them go for the cheaper version or the easiest way or cheapest product priced in the market. But many of them stay and they do appreciate the effort that is a brick and mortar doing. And I do believe that all the brick and mortar stores in Romania do a lot of effort to keep up the places. Because there is not just rent, there is cleaning fees, there is increasing prices to energy, heating and everything. And sometimes we cannot come from one month to another to raise the prices like the government does for all the amenities. In short, sometimes a shop would rather cut a part of the margin from its own business instead of increasing the prices. They would prefer to keep it like this for a while because every customer is very sensible to price wise. This is something that it's a particularity to the hobby business. Imagine that right now we are in turmoil, we are in a crisis, financial crisis all over the world, and we know that. We were not hit by the recession. The crisis is there, but the recession is not yet. But of course, when that will hit, many stores would need to be prepared at that time to look and to find out that the hobby aficionado will cut first from this area of expenses, not from food, not from clothes, not from rent or paying the mortgage or whatever. So, in short, a hobby store, especially in Eastern countries, I think it's going to be hit most by a recession because I'm going to be frank with you. I have been speaking with people in Germany, in UK, in France, in Spain, and they said, yeah, we do have a budget. We do have a budget for hobby every month. Let's say 500 euros or 300 euros. And they have a budget also for going out to the restaurant. They have a budget for living expenses and blah, blah, blah. And they have some extra on top of it, for nice things that they want to do or trips or whatever. And they said, if something bad happens, like a recession, everything, we will try to cut from all the budgets. But I have seen it here. They will cut first and they will cut the deepest in the hobby budget, if there is one. But this is also about, as I said, about the culture, about people putting the gaming. I will tell something that it might attract some ire, but gaming is therapy. People need to stop looking at it as like it's something trivial, like it's something just a game. No, it's not. Participating in a TTRPG session, especially for inward people, right? They will start expressing their emotions, they will forge new friendships, they will express themselves in the digital or in the fantastic world on that table, and will say things that usually they will not say those things in real life. There are studies on this. I know you know it. But it is therapy. So we are, as the small stores, I own a very small store. I have been owning and operating big store, like 200 square meters with 80, maybe 90 to up to 100 of seating capacity for card games. I've been organizing nationals for Magic the Gathering, for Yu-Gi-Oh!, doing big tournaments and whatever. It doesn't matter. Even if it's a big or small store, people come here to enjoy, to spend quality time with their friends, or to create and forge new friendships with new people, to meet new people. So this is very important. That is an aspect that unfortunately I have seen in the past years. Many people are forgetting about it. And this is something that is not healthy to the industry. And let's not talk about, I haven't seen it too much on the TTRPG scene, but on the board game scene, everything that's going with Kickstarter and everything, all those crowdfunding and the FOMO and everything, it is so bad. The prices have skyrocketed. I have seen games that they should not go above 100 euros, and now they are 200, 250. Of course, with a lot of things in them, extra miniatures, extra. But everything is putting pressure on a player or on a passionate person that he will not spend the money on 3 games. He will have to spend money on 1 game. And unfortunately, this will narrow its opportunity and possibilities. I am not debating that the 300 euro is not a great game. Of course it is, because if it wasn't, he wouldn't buy it. But having 2 very expensive products in the market, sometimes it's not very good. But this is just my opinion. And I am dealing with this, and I am selling product like this. I am selling Awaken Realms. I am selling a lot of expensive board games. But as I said, TTRPGs are, especially if you don't want to invest a lot, like in terrain and miniatures and everything, all in this a few source books, one core rule book, and just a group of nice friends that really do share your passion with you, and you're set. It doesn't matter the place. We are here just to serve and to offer a service. For example, I have a friend, and I'm going to finish with this. He's been allowed again by his wife to go out and play with friends because he has a small kid, and he had to wait for the kid to grow a little older, like 1 year and a half, because it's very hard. Having a newborn, it's quite hard. Also for the mother, also for the father, also for the whole family, the budget and everything. But he said, I am allowed to. But my wife had one condition. And I said, what is that? To come back at not less than 3 a.m. in the morning, and said, no. She said, you do not play at home. Take your friends and go somewhere else and play, because we have a kid and he needs his rest, he needs his space. So they have not such a big flat, 3 rooms. And they said, okay, I don't want you to. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle to keep balance between the private life. But this is exactly what the store should be, to offer a place where people would come and enjoy a few moments of fun, to give this, and then they could go back to the real life. And I'm done.
Okay. I mean, I could comment on a lot of things, but I think that was a very nice ending, so I'm stopping the recording now. Finally, let's try something new. Interview 4 people at once. So when I was in Bucharest, I met up with Juno and Sherban at a gaming cafe, and let me tell you, that was an amazing place. It was like a youth center with lots of rooms and music, and you could get food and drinks, and there was gaming material everywhere. I would have loved such a place in my town when I was young.
Hi everyone, my name is Sherban. I have been playing TTRPGs for about 10 years now. I have started playing TTRPGs with Dungeons and Dragons in a summer camp, a survival summer camp. In one of the days, it was raining and we couldn't do our usual activities up in the mountains. And one of the kids in the camp had the 5th edition player's handbook and the monster manual. And he asked me and a couple of friends I was with if I wanted to play. And I said, yeah. And yeah, now I'm here 10 years later, a tattoo of a D20 on my arm and with a BA in D&D, basically.
Okay, then we go to Juno. Can you introduce yourself and tell us how you got into RPGs?
Hi guys, I'm Yuno. For me, it was something very random. Of course, my introduction to TTRPGs was D&D as well. My older brother got me into it, and then I started playing Vampire the Masquerade a couple of years ago, and now I ended up co-founding the RPG Gazette with Sherban.
Then Horia.
My name is Horia Marcan. I started playing RPGs in around 2013 with Call of Cthulhu, what with me being a big H.P. Lovecraft fan. Grew up reading it. So I wanted to, check out the game. And I don't know, what is it, 12, 13 years later, something along those lines. Here we are.
And Mihai, can you introduce yourself and tell us how you got into TTRPGs?
Hi, I'm Mihai, also known as Mad because of my initials. I started playing role-playing games when I was a little kid. And now I'm a big kid who smokes, and I still play D&D. That's about it.
So before we go into each of your projects, I want to know a couple of things about the adaptation of certain games. I start with Horia. You said you were interested in Lovecraft and Call of Cthulhu. So when you play that game, do you play it in New England or in Romania?
I ran a full campaign in New England. I ran some Delta Green in various places across the United States. But no, Call of Cthulhu, I never ran it in Romania. I believe if I were to run it now, I probably would, because as the years went on, I started setting more and more of my games in classic writer tip, write what you know. So I started setting it in what I actually know. It's made a world of difference for me. So to answer your question, if I were to run COC now, yeah, I'd probably run it in Romania, in my native Transylvania to be exact.
Speaking of Transylvania, I have to ask the awkward question to you. You said you're into Vampire the Masquerade. So where is that set when you play it? And how about the depiction of Romania or Transylvania in particular in those books?
The first campaign that I played, it was set in Bucharest, with very briefly mentions of Transylvania. On another hand, the lore really much explains some actions that happen to Transylvania. I would rather ask one of my dear colleagues to talk about the lore more. On the other hand, the next campaign that I played, or one-shots, were indeed set either in some other parts of Romania or Bucharest.
Does anyone else want to add on Vampire the Masquerade?
Oh, yeah. I kind of accidentally grew up with VTM via the video games. The first video game they pulled out in, I believe it was 2000, 2001, which was Redemption. And I got to playing the TTRPG like way down the line. I believe it was circa 2015 for me. Transylvania by Night, if you look at it as a book, as what it is, it's a source book. It does a lot of stuff very good, and there's a sidebar in it that actually calls out what they call the Count Chocula effect. How to not make it overly, shall we say, cheesy. There's decent representation, at least in Vampire the Masquerade, from what I've seen. But then again, Romania and vampires, it's kind of a given that you have to avoid the cliches, you have to avoid the children of the night, what noise they make of it all. So yeah, it's been decent. There's been slip-ups, and White Wolf are known for their spectacular slip-ups. But with us, it's been okay, I guess.
When I started playing VTM, the campaign was set in Bucharest, and I very much enjoyed that, and I very much enjoyed the fact that, technically speaking, you could have very familiar places showcased in a new light. And I did do that later on, but use friends of mine as NPCs and whatnot. When I started running as well, I also used Romania as a setting, both Bucharest and another city, Sibiu. But so far not as modern settings, but rather as the interwar period of it all. There are some couple other games in which I introduced the Romanian folklore or myth, but perhaps for another question.
And for those listeners who've never been to Romania, I've been to Transylvania once, and it looked very cozy and not scary at all. And some of the architecture reminded me of southern Germany. So for me, it was more like, this is a nice place and not scary at all. And back then, Bucharest at night was maybe a bit more. This was 15 years ago when there were still all these stray dogs. It was more scary than Transylvania. On to the individual projects. Maybe we begin how I first got to know you, and that's via the RPG Gazette. So I'll go to Shaban, I guess, to start. Tell us about that project.
The RPG Gazette was something I co-founded with my girlfriend, It was something that stood on our mind for quite a while, since a couple of years ago I used to have a blog about video games, but I kind of dropped it and it wasn't really that good. And she actually gave me the idea, well, you did that, you have some experience with that, why don't we start writing more about TTRPGs and do a blog focused on that and try to broaden the community a bit, since I don't think at that time we were both running games. But later on, both of us came to run games, so we were already kind of in the community and we were doing some outreach work, and this was, in a way, the natural extension of it. We started the blog, and then Horia jumped in. Later on, Mihai also jumped in, and it's been smooth sailing ever since then. We currently have around 100,000 total views, so it's kind of crazy that it garnered this much attention, both in country and outside the country, especially in the US.
So the blog is in English, isn't it?
It's in English.
Is there anything in it about Romanian role-playing or specific to Romania?
Yes, we do have a section. I basically asked around various groups and various members of community from across the country, and I made a page with all the clubs, venues, and pips, random people who organize sessions of D&D and other tabletop RPGs throughout the country. So if you are, for example, in Cluj, and you want to play D&D, you know about the site, you can find there all the venues in Cluj where they organize sessions. Aside from that, we also had a couple of podcast episodes with interviews with members from the local community. And you also have, for example, an article with the female GMing experience in Romania. And we also advertise events, small scale and larger scale events in the TTRPG space.
I'll pick up on that as long as Juno still has a charge left. Can you maybe say something about the female GMing experience in Romania?
Well, it's very different for every woman whom I've talked with. In my case, it still is a pretty positive experience. The article, it was made for International Women's Day, and it was really interesting because I got to interview a couple of very interesting women from our community. Yeah, it's definitely not as common for women to be GMing as guys, but it's definitely a thing that was positively embraced in our community. So,
do you have the impression that there's something different for the experience in Romania compared to, for example, the US, what you hear about there?
Not really. I'm not sure. It really depends on the community. I say the smaller community you're playing with. I've had guys that weren't really excited about the fact that I was a girl and I was GMing, and I had guys very happy about it or who didn't really care who GM'd. So yeah.
You mentioned a couple of cities, Shaban, in Romania. So what's the general scene like? Is it concentrated on the capital, or are there regional centers? How's role-playing in general distributed across the country?
Generally speaking, the community today is very insular in the sense that it's mainly concentrated around some of the big cities in the country, especially Bucharest, the capital, where we have the most RPG pubs and the most events. Cluj is also up there alongside Timișoara. There are also some smaller communities in Brașov and Târgu Mureș and Iași. And more recently now, Pitești and Sibiu also joined the ranks, and they now have their own pubs, and the community started to grow a bit more. But the capital is by far the biggest concentration.
So there's some ethnic and language minorities in Romania. Are you aware of any of these? So especially the Hungarian and German speaking communities, would they play in the other language? And is there a connection maybe to the other countries?
I live in Târgu Mureș, right? Târgu Mureș is one of those three, let's call them counties, that has a significant Hungarian minority. Typically, it's not that Hungarian-speaking people tend to play amongst themselves. I don't think there's enough people for any of us to be picky, overall, players. However, there were some connections. The LFGS we had here, the local friendly gaming store we used to have in the city, was run by a very dedicated Hungarian guy called Lehel Valic. A really cool guy. Unfortunately, he had to sell the store over because it wasn't raking up enough cash, sadly. I don't know for the German-speaking minority, ironically, since I might be Saxon, or at least partly Saxon myself. However, I imagine that seeing as how, based on what Șerban tells us, Sibiu is slowly developing its TTRPG community, you'd have a great chance of asking over there. Were you interested in that? I couldn't really tell you. I've played with Hungarians, I've played with Romanians. There weren't any significant obstacles to be overcome, seeing as how we all share English as a common language, if there's any language barriers or the like, right? Transylvania has always been multicultural. There you go.
Yeah, about Hungarian speaking people. So my uncle started actually playing D&D in Hungarian. He's Hungarian, and he found some older books 10, 20 years ago or something in Hungarian. We don't have them at home anymore, but I know there were some options in Hungarian as well. Not necessarily an official translation, but I know there were some books.
Can you talk about Biohazard a bit? What is that project about?
Don't let me talk about my game, man. I hate talking about the stuff I write. To keep it short and sweet, Biological Hazard is a hack of a hack of a hack of a hack, like all good TTRPGs are. It is a hack of the 24XX SRD, with 24XX, for those who haven't had yet the pleasure, I fully recommend it, is a fairly minimalistic, let's call it FKA, Kriegspiel adjacent role-playing game, which attempts, and in my humble opinion succeeds, to emulate my favorite horror video game series, which is the Resident Evil series, while also, paying homage to the references behind Resident Evil, which are George Romero's Dead films, John Russo's Living Dead films, I don't know, stuff like The Walking Dead, 28 days later. You see where I'm going with this. It's zombies, people. So that's pretty much it. It's supposed to be flexible. It's free. You print it out on 4 A5 pages, which maps out neatly to one A4 sheet of paper. And hopefully you get a set of dice and you kidnap some friends at gunpoint and you have fun. That's pretty much the whole story of Biological Hazard. I had to call it Biological Hazard because I believe biohazard in that context is a copyrighted term and the Capcom lawyers will be gunning for me.
So it's available in English, isn't it?
It is written in English and English exclusively. I wouldn't really have a market for it if it was, exclusively in Romanian. Lord knows I've tried. It didn't pan out. So yeah, sticking to English for the time being.
Oh, speaking of the language, so what is role-playing game in Romanian?
Joc de rol.
That sounds exactly like in Portuguese. So that was short and sweet. Then, Mihai, your projects, can you tell us a bit about them?
I can't tell you very much except that it's still in the works. I've been working on various systems just to get a feel of how game design works. The latest project is called Cold Void. It's basically an OSR in space. It's an OSR game like old school Renaissance. It's set in an empty universe. There are no NPCs, just the party who gets to pilot the ship around and try to survive by gathering scrap and gathering fuel from various derelicts they find in this empty universe. The universe is generated with dice thrown on pieces of paper, and you map it out as you go. This is the game, basically. It's very simplistic, but it has rules written like an OSR game. It's deadly, it's survival oriented, and I'm still working on it. I ran it once at the TTRPG Day, Dice and Destiny Day as it was called. Unfortunately, D&D Day, which wasn't about D&D at all. So I ran that one session there. People kind of enjoyed it, actually. I had a British player at the table, so I had to run it in English. It's not my first language, and it was a bit of a challenge. But I think it was fun. It was fun for me. It was fun for the other people. So I will try and make it better and then possibly publish it.
There is one more thing that I would like to add. The fact that before the Gazette and now through the Gazette, we also started to organize what has been dubbed as the Wizards Challenge, is basically an D&D focused event similar in vein to the old D&D Open that were run back in TSR era, Dungeons and Dragons at Gen Con, where we make a dungeon and players have to travel through that dungeon. There are usually different tables with different DMs, but they each run the same dungeon using the same characters. And it's a contest. There are points, there are a primary objective and secondary objectives, and we are going to have our third edition of this event in June. in 2 weeks' time.
Read the RPG Gazette or perish.
Read it or we will impale you.
So thank you for listening to the World of RPGs. A special thanks goes out to all the Romanian players who talked to me. As always, the opening music was by Thomas Muțiu, who, hey, is from Romania too. I actually asked him if he wanted to be interviewed for this episode, but it didn't work out. The logo is by Aybar Karakash, but he's not Romanian but Turkish. As for recommendations, well, need I repeat the RPG Gazette? You'll find a link to it and everything else mentioned in the show notes. Please like, review, share this episode on your medium of choice. For episode 23, as promised, we return to North America, but we stay with the Romance languages, and we stay with countries that have a bad reputation in the White Wolf's World of Darkness games. The following excerpt is from a game from that country called Brujo. No, not the Vampire Clan.
Pérez. Creo que puedo influenciarlo más allá de lo normal y quiero que todos los fantasmas le enseñen.
Ok, puedes tirar. Tú estás haciendo esta misa y nada más sientes el rifle que está a un lado.
El ruido del bastoncito en los...
Sí, pues el ruido.
8.
¿8?
8. Y me quedo con él porque no me quiero volver más loco ahorita.
Ok. Y el general de la nada voltea y... ¿Qué chingados está ahí? Y voltea... Y ves que nota que está toda la gente en misa. Y el güey está como, ¿qué está haciendo, pendejo? Y dispara y ninguno le pega al padre.
Obviamente.
Y el güey está así como, no me vas a engañar con tus pinches trucos. Te va a llevar la chingada. Ahorita llegan mis soldados y queman esta puta iglesia. Y el güey, pero notas que está asustado y todos lo están volteando a ver ahí. De hecho, cuando tienes el arma y si notas que el espíritu que está sentado ahí, ya todos lo pueden ver a todos los espíritus.
Tengo una pregunta. ¿Alguno de los espíritus que están ahí son, por ejemplo, la mamá de María o la mamá de Alba? O sea, gente que él conocería.
Sí.
Yo te digo quién es
la
mamá
esposa de él.
Sí.
Es hora de que cobren la venganza del otro lado.
Good shit.
A mí me está picando mucho así el tatuaje que acabo de hacer.
No serás los tatuajes, amigos.
Ajá.
No.
Cosa de tatuajes.
Y menos cuando traen demonios dentro.
Ajá. Si su demonio trae una entidad bíblica dentro, no lo rasquen.
¿Tu demonio?
Por favor.
Había escuchado de rascahuele, pero rasca y su moneda. Eso es nuevo.
Es una nueva modalidad que estamos implementando en los estudios.
Uy, espérate para la nueva.
Reclutaron un feto ingeniero.